So that, folks, I think is like, the lessons that we'll take away from it. And, regardless of how we stay in the podcasting world for the future, because I think everyone will have a podcast. For me, the easiest way is when I can sort of get in and have a chat with a bunch of people. I love panels. What about you, Will?
I agree too. I never would have thought we would be doing this. I never would have thought I would be a podcast host. But I've enjoyed it. And honestly, it's made me a lot more confident in many ways. So I'm sure I'll be up to something like this again sometime soon. And I'm curious to see how the 4 a.m. report evolves too. So that'll be exciting to watch.
Welcome to the 4 a.m. report. Let's face it, we all have to market. Large or little, it's harder than ever to stand out in a cluttered space of one-size-fits-all and copycat marketing moves. Welcome to the 4 a.m. report, a micro podcast that brings you valuable conversations with people on the marketing dilemmas keeping them up at night. Here are your hosts, contrarian marketers and creative clutter cutters, Susan Diaz and Will Lamont.
Hello and welcome back to the 4 a.m. report. We're creeping to 150. I think this is just 149, Will. 149 episodes in a co-host model. And after episode 150, we'll be moving to a little bit more focus on a news-based format for the 4 a.m. report. So before we did that, we wanted to come in and chat about learnings and thoughts and memories that we have from close to 150 episodes in a co-host format.
Right. Yeah. No, it's hard to believe. The 150 seems crazy, but no, I think 150 is a good time to switch things up a little bit. The other news that we have, and might as well just say it, is that as part of that change, I'm going to be stepping back from co-hosting the 4 a.m. report. So that'll be a little sad, but also I'm excited to see where it goes. And of course, I will be back, I'm sure, regularly to chime in on the things I want to talk about. So stepping back, but not gone forever.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so, we will in various ways be continuing a co-host format because we will have different people join us for news commentary. That said, I think we had been functioning, Will, in a model where it was you and I and a guest, or you and I in a teaching format. And we always sort of favored that conversation model over other things. So in today's episode, shall we sort of say we'll lay out 5 lessons or 5 things we're taking away from a co-hosting model?
Yes, for sure. And I do have to say, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and my favorite ones are the conversational ones. Yes, I do listen to sometimes the host interviewing someone and that back and forth, but I feel that that's been done to death. I'm almost tired of that format, Susan. What I really like is the conversational type of podcast, whether it's a couple people as a panel, or like we have two co-hosts, so you can play off each other. Sometimes it goes in a different direction, which is always fun for the audience too. So I really do stand behind this idea of at least a co-host kind of model. The first thing I think we wanted to point out is it's that whole wingman mentality, right, Susan? You talk about that often.
Yes, I do. I mean, in the beginning when we started this, which was about 2.5 years now ago that we began the 4 a.m. report, the wingman was straight up like a mindset need as far as I was concerned. There was no way I was going to go and do something public facing and put out an opinion unless I was like, ooh, somebody smart is with me and is able to, have a judgment on it before it goes out. And it gives you a layer of safety and comfort and all of those things. And then, once we got a little bit more settled into podcasting, it still brought a great deal of energy. It's like when you're thinking by yourself versus you're thinking with someone, it's a whole other level. I think that's partly to do with who we are as people, and we feed off of the brainstorm format and, sort of like the energy of having someone give you feedback as you speak, right? And on a tactical level, like putting ourselves on a video chat, whether or not we use the video was secondary, but like being able to see the other person's reaction. So yes, that wingman energy was really quite transformative as far as I was concerned.
For sure. And that builds on another point we wanted to make. Having that co-host, it's you bring different things to it. This is like kind of a no-brainer, but it really is true. I think I'm much better at kind of asking the questions you're really good at like thinking on your feet. When we're coming up with episode ideas, you can right away like see a topic and kind of shape it out. I like to go and like make some points and flesh out and go and like, flesh it out a little bit more. So as well as bringing different skill sets to the podcasting process, the podcast hosting process, I feel we also have learned things from each other as we've recorded too. I think both of our styles have changed and morphed a little bit. And I think that's because we've pushed each other. We've learned from watching each other. And so I think that was interesting too. I think it helps you grow more when you do have someone else there with you.
I agree. You do sort of learn how to tap into your own strengths and bring them to the table, and be sort of like, it's someone who's inspiring you to get better at things. And I think from a company perspective as well, like in larger enterprises, often this is a way to break down silos. If it's like two different disciplines or two different, it's strategy and execution or whatever it is, I think I really enjoyed that. Like I've gotten a lot better at interviewing from just watching how you listen and ask questions. I would joke in the beginning, Will, that like I would ask someone a question and then stop listening because I was like, I can only do my questions. I can either do questions or I can focus on your answer. I can't do both.
That's right. But your answer is not going the way I wanted it to go. So yeah, for sure. No, I know what you mean. You do learn honestly, become a podcast host, folks, and you learn how to think on your feet. You also learn why it's important to have a good audio editor in case you flub something too. So yeah.
Hat tip to Jeremy. Yeah. So that leads us to sort of our third lesson, which is, a lesson from co-hosting is, again, in the same vein, but I think it allows you to get a lot braver, like especially when we were discussing topics of great gravitas, whether it was politics or reconciliation or, any of those topics that are out of our comfort zones. And perhaps individually, we would have had no comment on any of it. And we would have said, what do I know? It made us a little bit braver in the form of kind of our responsibility as podcast hosts. We're like, we're in this space and, we have a comment about everything else. Let's have a comment about some of this. So I think it definitely did a lot in terms of collectively, we are braver than we are individually is what I would say.
Oh, for sure. I agree completely. I remember that the first time we decided to go away from, talking about the marketing topic of the week was, I think it was the Trudeau blackface, brownface scandal, right? Wasn't that the first time when we decided to go there?
Yes.
And I know we were really nervous about it, but that was the first step into it. And then after that, not that the conversations got easier, not that the conversations should have been easier, but I think what we learned is like the conversations need to be had, and it's okay if you make a misstep, as long as you know how to apologize and recognize that you made a misstep. But it's okay. And these times are tough and lots going on, and by not talking about it, things aren't going to get better, improve, change. So unfortunately, and fortunately, that's kind of what we decided we needed to do. And we still talked about lots of silly things too along the way too.
100%. We totally did. And I think that what it did as well is that, from coming out and saying some of the stuff around those subjects, it sort of put out a signal to whether it's our existing clients or other people about like, let's talk about crisis communication and the need to have messaging prepared for those things. And, people often responded to our emails on things we said around this. And so it made us feel a little bit more purpose. It's like, I'm not just randomly making this up and having a perspective. It's because people look to us for sort of crisis advisory, right? So I think that was a big part. And then the fourth point is, in whatever way it sort of shapes up for you, it is a wider network. The more hosts, we talk about this in a panel context, but it's certainly also true in a co-host context. It's the network of more than one person, right? So when you put material out, we've talked about this in a LinkedIn sort of thing, where if one person puts it out, you have X. If two people put it out, theoretically, you have 2X. Whether it's audience, whether it's people who are guests that you're going to reach out to, I think it does give you a wider network.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think so. I think for sure you have a wider pool of people to pull from if you're looking for guests and that sort of thing. Did we also talk, Susan, about the whole motivational aspect of it when we were talking wingman? Did we talk about this? How on days when, it's really easy when it's just you doing something to postpone, to cancel, to reschedule, to put off. But when you have that other person there, I think that was one thing too. Like we held each other accountable, and there'd often be times you didn't feel like doing it, or I was not feeling like doing it, but we, didn't want to disappoint the other one. We got it done. So
that's
just
right.
That alone, having that. So that's kind of circling back to that
accountability, right?
Accountability. Yeah.
I think so. I think there's a huge element of accountability and consistency that comes out of it. Like you said, it's like, it's a system and it's larger than just you and any sort of whim that might cross your mind. And like you said, if it's not put down and set in stone, it's so easy to like something else takes its place and something else becomes more important. So I do have
to say you were really, that was one of your strong skill sets that you brought to this was no, we're putting something out at 4 a.m. on Thursday every week. Whereas I know I would have just been like, okay, we're all too busy this week. Don't worry, everybody. No one's going to notice. Right. But that's kind of how I know I would have handled it. But you were like, no, take an old episode, edit this down and throw it out. We don't need to create something new every week. And because of that, insisting on sticking to our publishing schedule, something every week at 4 a.m. That's why we got somewhere. That's why we got traction. That's why we have 150 episodes. So kudos to you for pushing that, because I guaranteed when we were super stressed, sometimes I would have been, don't worry, no one's going to notice. So good for you.
Oh, thank you. That's cool. It's true. It's like sometimes you have to just be clear about what those things are that are non-negotiables, and we've often been told by many people, clients and partners and whatever, about how when we say we do something, we do it. And so I was like, we should probably extend that to ourselves as well. And when we say we publish something, we will publish it. And I remember going to a conference years ago where they talked about binge-worthy content. And I was like, oh, it seems a little like, how would anybody be binging on our content? And then he said, the real definition of binge-worthy is that you can expect it on a certain date at a certain time, and it's there and it's constant. And I was like, that we can do. Like making it binge-worthy listenable is debatable, but making it on time drops for sure. So I think that's sort of like the consistency is a point on its own, I think, accountability and consistency. And then the last one, and this is pretty important to us, is it's fun. I truly believe we stuck with it because we enjoyed it. I would say that I would blow off a client meeting if I needed to get some space. I would blow or push back a deadline, but I rarely pushed back a podcast recording because that was fun. And unless you're sick or a guest canceled, which also didn't happen to us a lot, it was one of the best parts of my days.
And you know what too, Susan, it's in addition to it being fun, we knew that it was the easiest way for us to create new content, hitting record with a little bit of planning, hitting record, coming on and talking about what we're going to talk about. Then it goes into our content creation machine, right? Where clips are pulled from it. It turns into a blog post. We write some social media posts for it. All of that weekly content came from us spending, 20 minutes talking on the podcast together, whether just us in a teaching mode of our teaching style format, or we had a guest on or a couple guests on. But I knew, in addition to it being fun, I knew that this 30 minutes was worth its weight in gold because it was going to produce a crap ton of material for us. So
true.
That was great too. Yeah.
So true. We really fully understood the value of sort of anchoring. We call it anchor. Different people call it different things. Taking like you not showing up for that thing meant that everything else sort of fell back and became more complicated. So I think that commitment to what is the easiest way. So you've truly got to believe that this is the easiest way to create that content. And, and then that's how it works. So that, folks, I think is like, the lessons that we'll take away from it. And, regardless of how we stay in the podcasting world for the future, because I think everyone will have a podcast. Everyone does have a podcast. For me, the easiest ways are when I can sort of get in and have a chat with a bunch of people. I love panels. What about you, Will?
Yeah, no, I agree too. I never would have thought we would be doing this. I never would have thought I would be a podcast host, but I've enjoyed it. And and honestly, it's made me a lot more confident in many ways. So I'm sure I'll be up to something like this again sometime soon. And I'm curious to see how the 4 a.m. report evolves too. So that'll be exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we've taken away many of our repurposed lessons, and we'll see how that goes. So that's it, folks. Those are our lessons. To recap them real quick, there's an energy that comes from Wingman. Don't forget to sort of really focus on what those complementary skills are. Take advantage of how being with somebody as a co-host will make you a little bit braver, as well the wider network that comes from it. And lastly, or the last two things is, accountability and consistency gets better with co-hosts. And it really needs to be efficient and fun. And that's what's going to keep you showing up and doing it all the time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're losing sleep over a marketing-related problem, let us know. Drop us a line at cp.digital. Sweet dreams. Well, hopefully.